Okay, so this is the last video that I will do on this audio interface, the Tascam US1608. For whatever reason, the videos that I put up on this machine on my channel get the most traffic. I mean, I have a tiny little channel that really is nothing, but for the traffic that does come across my channel, for people seem to comment on these videos the most. Um, Usually technical questions that sometimes I'll answer, but honestly, you guys can just look up the manual and get whatever answers you need. Um, so I'm not really going to take time to answer technical questions. But what I will do is talk about my final thoughts on this interface. This is it's appropriate because I really don't use this machine anymore, and I'm actually getting ready to just completely decommission it and store it in the closet because thanks to COVID, I really don't get to play drums much anymore because the house has always got somebody in it, and playing drums is usually just for when I'm home alone and I know I'm not going to bother anybody. So I moved on, no longer really using this machine. That being said, my final thoughts. It's a great interface for certain people, certain use cases, I should say. Um, for the person who has really a budget, a budget of a couple $100 for an interface, and they need to record multiple channels, um, and and are working in a software, working with either Windows or Mac. This will work great for you, just as a permanent, studio fixture. For me, I recorded tons of audio through it, full drum set. You can see all the channels that I use for just the drum set here. When I did the Boomer Tech album, I basically used every available input on this machine while I was recording that album. So it's great for that. Once you can plug in so many different instruments and microphones, and still have a lot left. There's other interfaces out there that really just kind of top out at 8 inputs, which is fine for most people. It's not that's all they really need. But if you're like a drummer and you have a full kit and you want to really mic it up, you can run through those 8 inputs really easily. And if you're recording additional stuff, having the additional 8 is really a nice thing. But like I said, I'm not really playing drums much anymore. Maybe when COVID is over, or maybe if I ever am in a actual soundproof room, I'll play drums again. But that's not really happening. But for now, this machine is really kind of overkill, and I've since moved on from Mac OS and Windows altogether. I'm really just running Linux these days, so I don't really have this particular interface, the software for it is not supported by Tascam for Linux, unfortunately. And I really don't feel like dealing with, hypervisors or whatever they call it, compatibility layers, or running Wine or whatever. It's just too much of a pain in the ass. And to be honest, most of my music making is done on an iPad these days because it's just iPads are great now for music making. So you can see I've got my iPad here that I do all the music on, and then various controllers and things like that. The computer is really just for nerdy stuff and internet. That being said, I did a couple of years or earlier last year get this interface specifically for iPad, and it's the Behringer. What is it? Behringer UMC404 HD, whatever. Behringer is great. What I really like about these is there's no software that you need to install to make them work. They just work. They're plug and play. They're USB class compliant. It works with iPads, iOS. It works with Windows, Linux, Mac OS, just right out of the box. There's nothing you need to configure. Whereas with the Tascam, you really gotta, I mean, out of the box, these first 8 channels will work, but if you really want the full functionality of this, you gotta install their settings software, which is that mixer, and you have to configure it to do what you want it to do. And that's fine. Like I said, if it's like a permanent thing in your studio, you configure that and you're good to go. But if you're moving stuff around or changing configurations like I tend to do, having something like this, the Behringer interface, is great. Now this one only has 4 ports or 4 inputs. They do make a version of this with 8 inputs, and I kind of wish I got that because having 4, I mean, I'm constantly kind of switching things around. But there's other things about the UMC404 that are just great. One, the big one, is I've got my mix knob, which I lost when I upgraded from the other Tascam that I had when I upgraded to this thing. This doesn't have that, and having this mix knob is so nice to be able to just easily mix in whatever's coming straight into these inputs versus what is coming in via USB of this. So you can have that constant balance. Also, the combo jacks on the front. These are quarter-inch jacks slash XLR. Super nice. And the knobs are better. These knobs are trash. They're awful. And for the most part, 1 through 10, you're not going to really. I mean, it's basically set it and forget it. It's for the gain. But for line out and phones, you can see I actually had to switch these knobs for something else because they were these, and these are just awful. They're tiny. And when I was using this as my primary interface, just for my computer, I had to put in a different type of knob that was just easier to turn. So ergonomically, these knobs are awful. But like I said, these are the only 2 that you're really going to be messing with mostly. The other differences is that's about it. Preamps on these machines are basically identical. A couple years ago, I actually got a hold of the 8-channel version of the UMC Behringer, and I did a side-by-side comparison recording drums into Logic, and I tried my best to hear the difference of the preamps between the US 1608 and the 8-channel version of this Behringer UMC, and there was nothing. I mean, maybe this was a teeny tiny little bit brighter, but really the preamps are there's really not much difference in them. So that being said, yeah, I'm not getting rid of this. I may sell it at some point, but I like having all of these channels available. If I ever start doing a more in-depth recording project with live drums, I'll definitely use this and bust out a Mac and go with that. But for now, for my needs with iPad OS, just producing on iPad, everything is just electronic these days. This is all I need. And the other cool thing about this is it works really well with the AUM software on iPad OS, which you can basically route hardware channels from this or back and forth between the Behringer and AUM on iPad. You can kind of do that with the Tascam, but if you don't have it configured, you have to basically pre-configure it first in the settings panel on Windows or Mac to get it to do that. Whereas with this, it's just you plug it in, it recognizes it as an interface with multiple inputs and outputs right away. There's nothing you have to do. It's really nice. But yeah, that is it. If anybody has questions on the Tascam, I just recommend going to their website, downloading the manual, and reading through that. I've had a couple people say that it's really complicated or that it doesn't work on their machine. I know if you're using Windows, Windows, let's be honest, Windows sucks for most things music when it comes to drivers or music software. So it's no surprise that people are going to have some problems here and there. But on a Mac, that's mostly what I've used it with. No problems. You just have to get over that hump of the initial configuration. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoy it. This is the final thoughts on the Tascam US1608. It's a great interface for if you're on a budget and you need lots of inputs. But if you want to move on to something just more plug and play, I do recommend one of the Behringer UMC interfaces for that. All right, take it easy.